Hello, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Hello and welcome to Ask Rob and Rob, the show where you ask us questions about property and we give you answers about property. It's simple, but it works, and that's why we do it every single week. And we make it very simple for you to get on the show, otherwise we wouldn't have one.
Yep, it really is as easy as picking up your phone and dialing this number, 013 808 0035. That's 013 808 0035. Or if you prefer, you can go all tech enabled and go to our website at thepropertyhub.net/ask and record a message into your laptop that way. Dead easy, so easy you can do it all the way from Japan, which is what Daniel did.
Hi there, Rob and Rob. This is Daniel. I'm based in Japan, and I'm looking to invest in property for the first time around the Peterborough area, which is where I've got family. First of all, thank you very much for the helpful resources, the podcast, the book, the Property Hub. They've been super helpful, helping me establish my goal. And given that I'm really happy with my current job, thankfully, I'm looking to just build up capital, grow capital, and build up a pension pot. So my strategy for that is hands-off, long-term, buy and hold, keeping it simple, with single-let properties. So the question, given around £40,000 to invest and assuming a mortgage with 75% loan to value, would you put that in one property around £160,000 value and maybe build up in the future but start off with that one? Or would you separate it into two lower value properties around £80,000 each, perhaps 6 to 12 months apart? Given that the first one, as you've said, is never going to be your best investment, you learn a lot from it. So hopefully by the second, you end up with a better purchase. What would you recommend? Appreciate the answer in advance, and thanks again for all the help and guidance that you provide us. Thanks. Bye.
It's only a matter of time, Rob, before the Tokyo meetup starts. Thank you, Daniel. Great to have your question in, and great question too. Lots of people around the globe are going to be interested in this one because lots of people are buying in the UK from overseas. So what's the answer? Well, if you were in the UK, we may answer this a little bit differently. But there's a few things that you have to take into consideration when you're investing overseas. You simply don't have the choice to self-manage or manage this property at a later date because you're overseas. So having a concentrated portfolio of maybe 3 to 6 properties instead of 6 to 12 might be a better move for you. But actually, there's a far bigger point here as well, and it's the ability to buy these properties in the first place. Because at the purchase prices you've talked about at 80,000, there's less mortgage options available to you. Once you go over 100k, more options start to appear and be available to you. So it might actually be a mortgageability issue rather than anything else that dictates your strategy. So definitely speak to a broker on this one, but having worked with lots of overseas investors, that would be my advice to you. Rob, would you add anything or take anything away from that?
I certainly wouldn't take anything away. I think that's a really critical point about the value, and that's the thing to figure out. Because normally, we've had this kind of question before, and normally it's like, well, it comes down to the numbers. Is one or two going to be better in terms of numbers? And then you've got to balance the fact of like having all your eggs in one basket versus the possibility of having two boilers to break down and things like that. So it's all fairly straightforward. But that extra factor is the one to really watch for in your case, Daniel. The other thing to bear in mind that's not location dependent is you mentioned that you've got about 40k to invest and you're looking at properties around 80 or 160. So 160 being 40 times 4 makes sense. However, do bear in mind that some of that will get eaten up in fees. So you'll be paying your broker, you'll be paying your solicitor, you'll be paying for valuations and bits and bobs, and you don't want to leave yourself absolutely stretched and right down to the wire at the end. So make sure when you're deciding you're targeting the type of property to buy and how much you're going to spend, make sure you've built that in so you're not stretching yourself too much with regard to your finances. And that goes just as much for anyone buying in the UK.
There you go, Daniel. Hope that helps. Good luck, and let us know in the Property Hub forum how you get on. Right, Rob, you're never going to believe this, but we've got another flipping question. No, I mean actually a question about flipping.
Hi there, my name is Audrey Allen and I'm from Glasgow, and my husband and I have recently started a property developing business. We are looking to flip properties and have found in some of our research that if a property has been owned for less than 6 months, that it can be then difficult for a buyer to get a mortgage on the property because mortgage companies seem to like you to have had the property for 6 months. So we just really wanted to clarify if this is the case, as when we've researched on it.
Well, Audrey, thank you for your question. You got cut off a little bit at the end of there, but luckily your message came across loud and clear. So the question is, if you're developing a property and then selling it on within 6 months, is your buyer going to fall foul of the 6-month rule, as it's called? So a little bit of background for anyone who doesn't know. Generally speaking, mortgage lenders, before you refinance or before somebody buys a property, they like the previous owner, including you, if you are the previous owner, to have owned the property for at least 6 months. And that's to cut down on fraud. That's not the case with absolutely every lender, but you do have far more options available once you cross the 6 months. So as Audrey's quite rightly thinking, well, if I sell the property on and I've owned it for less than 6 months, is my buyer going to struggle to get a mortgage? Well, of course, it depends. It always does. But as a general rule, it's not going to be an issue, especially if your buyer is a residential buyer. And the reason for that is when lenders are looking at investment purchases and when you're trying to refinance in a short space of time, there are certain situations where people abused quick remortgaging in the past. So they're specifically looking out for that. If it's a owner-occupier buyer, that's very clearly not the case. And if they've got a good broker, they can clearly make the case that they're buying the property from somebody whose business it is to buy properties, refurb them and sell them again quickly. So obviously there's nothing amiss there. So I'm not saying that you're never going to have an issue. You could get unlucky if they don't have a good broker and they've got a tricky lender. And of course, that's outside your control. But in general terms, it's not something you have to worry about all that much. And also, Rob, it's worth bearing in mind that if you can buy the property, turn it around and have it sold again within 6 months, that's actually harder than it sounds.
It's a lot harder than it sounds. I mean, that's an incredible turnaround. I don't know how much experience you've got. So maybe you can, and maybe you deliver to those timelines. But refurbs often take a little bit longer than you expect. Buyers don't necessarily come crashing through your door, especially when you're trying to get top money for the project you've done. And of course, our good old friends, the solicitors who'll do the conveyancing, well, they've been known to take their time as well. So actually, while it may sound frustrating and something that's going to slow you down, realistically, 6 months isn't that bad of a turnaround anyway. If you can turn around and get it all done within 6 months, then you're actually doing great. So yes, in some circumstances, it may be frustrating, but actually, for a flipping strategy, I'd say it's impressive if you get it under 6 months anyway.
Yeah, I hear that a lot from people who come wanting to borrow money for 6 months for a flip. And I always say to them, are you sure that's going to be long enough? So 6 months is always a little bit tight. But if you do manage to get it done within that time, fantastic. You shouldn't have any issues. So all good news there. So thank you to Audrey and Daniel for their questions today. If you've got any questions, as well as asking us, and we'd love to answer for you, you can also ask on the Property Hub forum. We've now got over 15,000 members in there. So chances are one of them's going to be able to help out. So whatever your question, pop over there or go and see what other people are up to. Check on the progress journals, see what's going on there, get inspired by what other people are up to. And while you're over on the Property Hub, you can always treat yourself to a nice free course as well. There's loads to learn and lots to see.
Okay, so that's us done for another week. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to our wonderful listeners who left us a question. Remember, it's really easy to leave us a question, so if you've got one, the tip of your tongue, and you're thinking, I'd love to know that, leave us a recording and let us know, and we'll answer it for you. We'll be back with the podcast on Thursday, and with Ask Rob and Rob next Tuesday. So until then, have fun, take care, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.